Hi, welcome back to another episode of Stand on Guard. I'm David Krayden, and this show is live from Ottawa. Let's call this the Ostrich Show. I have been deluged with emails and text messages and direct messages for the last month about this ostrich farm in British Columbia, my home province, that is being forced by the federal government to cull, meaning AKA slaughter its herd of ostriches. Now, why should we care? When I come back, I'll tell you why we should care.
The Prime Minister lied and his minions continue to lie.
We need political change. But we also need to resolve to resist. Yes, please like the station, subscribe. We've been doing so well with that in the last month, and I appreciate all your support. And by the way, I might look okay. I'm just barely there today, but finally on the road to recovery. I believe this was another unanticipated consequence of the safe and effective vaccine. And that's all I can say about that at this point, anyway. But speaking about vaccines and mandates, the federal government, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, should not be forcing people to cull their ostriches, especially when the avian flu prognosis was questionable in the beginning. But the farmers are arguing that the ostriches have developed herd immunity to avian flu. So why kill a bunch of healthy ostriches? This is how we got into the COVID mandates. Federal government ordering people to do crazy things, to lock down, to stay at home, go to strip clubs, go to liquor stores, but don't go to church. And oh yes, if you're in a restaurant, you can take your mask off at the table because that's safe. So we all know how bizarre these mandates were, and we don't want to go down this road again. So am I standing up for ostriches? Yes, and so is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I love his work. I thought his father was fantastic too. But Kennedy has written a letter to the president of the Canadian Food Inspection Agency asking that ostriches at a BC farm be spared from a planned cull, in other words, slaughter. Kennedy, the U.S. Secretary for Health and Human Services, posted a letter on social media dated Friday and addressed to Paul McKinnon, saying there would be significant value in studying the ostrich's immune response to avian flu. The secretary, who says he spoke with McKinnon on Thursday about the cull, thanked the Canadian agency for what he said was an openness to discussing a collaboration on a long-term study of the roughly 400 birds at Universal Ostrich Farm in Edgewood, BC. The letter is co-signed by the heads of the U.S. Food and Drug Administration and National Institutes of Health, whom Kennedy said also took part in the conversation with McKinnon. It's our hope that this collaboration will help us understand how to better protect human and animal populations and perhaps lead to the development of new vaccines and therapeutics, Kennedy said in the social media post. And I'm reading from a National Post article here that is based on this X post. We at HHS are excited about this opportunity for cooperation among our governments in a promising scientific partnership. Emphasis on science. Make sure you make decisions based on real science. The letter says the situation requires further evaluation. We are fully committed to supporting CFIA and Canadian farmers in safeguarding both public health and animal welfare, and to further studying this important and unique flock for scientific advancement. I'm I'm just going to put myself on here. The Canadian Food Inspection Agency did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Katie Pastney, Pazitney, whose parents own the farm, thanked Kennedy on social media. "Thank you for trying to protect innovative science and these animals," she said in a Facebook post. "Together, I know that we can create the most magical change out of this most challenging opportunity." Earlier Friday, the RCMP said they were investigating the death of an ostrich at the farm, where protesters have gathered to prevent a cull of the birds ordered by federal authorities. Pazitney posted a video on social media in the morning saying a large drone had flown over the property between 1 and 2 a.m. and one of their, quote, biggest beautiful roosters, unquote, was shot dead. He said in a later post that Mounties had been collecting statements from witnesses and that there was a, quote, clear entry wound and exit wound, unquote, through the bird that died. So I'm going to show you some videos of this because this is, once again, this is absolutely outrageous overreach by the federal government into the lives of farmers, into the lives of ordinary Canadians, telling you how to live based on supposition, based on assumption, not based on science. So let's have a look at this. The first one I'm going to show you is a CBC story. Yes, believe it or not, this is CBC.
With their heads poking up above the fence line, dozens of ostriches watch the dramatic scene in front of them.
And you've got to ask yourself now, am I going to be able to sleep with myself?
Police have come to talk to the Universal Ostrich Farm's owners and their supporters about an order from the Canadian Food Inspection Agency to cull these birds and the RCMP's role if the agency is met with resistance.
We do have a job to do, and we will do our job. My job is specifically to help make sure that no one gets hurt and that we talk about this stuff.
For months, the farmers on this remote rural property in the BC interior have been fighting to save their 400 ostriches. Last December, 2 of them tested positive for avian flu. Dozens of ostriches died, but hundreds survived, and the farmers believe the herd is now immune to the disease.
You've heard of herd immunity? There's a little too many herds there, but that's exactly what this is all about. This exemplifies herd immunity. This is why we don't have to kill every bird in the country, because they develop immunity.
And should be exempt from the cull order.
We're very disappointed that we, again, are just being met with resistance and can't work together, because this isn't just about our farm, it's about the future of farming across Canada and the world.
In a statement, the CFIA says all avian influenza viruses have the potential to infect mammals, including humans. The agency says it has a duty to protect Canadians from the serious potential risks that avian influenza presents. After losing a court challenge to stop the cull last month, the farmers called for supporters to join them on their property and protest what they feel is a case of government overreach.
We're just hoping that if the CFA sees how much these animals mean to the community, hopefully they'll change their mind on what they want to do with the birds.
Many here once protested public health orders during the pandemic. Now they're live streaming from the farm for the world to see.
This is a battle between science and politics.
Despite growing calls to retest the ostriches, the CFIA says it will proceed with a humane depopulation on the farm, but not saying when or how that will happen. Brady Strachan, CBC News, Kelowna.
Yes, a lot of these folks were against COVID mandates. I wonder why. Because once again, a lot of those mandates were not based strictly on science, but politics. And what we have to do here is ensure that we are making decisions based on real science. And herd immunity is scientifically based, always has been. It's rooted in science. And of course, now we know that some of the mandates, and we know the vaccine was safe and effective, but some of the mandates really didn't make sense. Staying 6 feet away from people, that was completely arbitrary. Masking when you're out riding your bike, absolutely no reason for it. Why you're safe at a restaurant table, but not away from the table? Of course, it didn't make sense. This is why we're encouraging a scientific response to the situation and not to force people to kill their birds, their ostriches. Why is it so hard to say ostrich plural? Anyway, maybe because I'm not feeling well. Anyway, here's an even better report from Rebel News on what's happening at this farm.
Oh man, now you're not the real deal, which is a good thing, but tell us why it's important to dress up as though you are.
Because Ostrich Fest.
Oh, poor babies behind me. Oh my goodness. It is May 20th. Drea Humphrey here with Rebel News as promised, back at Universal Ostrich Farms in Edgewood, BC, bringing you a story continuously that defies logic and science when it comes to the Canadian Food Inspection Agency's plans to continue going through with culling, aka slaughtering, a flock of healthy, robust, vibrant ostriches. There's some of them behind me. Many of you know this story. If you don't, we have a special website that has all the background called SaveTheOstriches.com. But in short, despite immense pushback, we're talking a unifying pushback between local politicians on the provincial level as well. Even Premier David Eby came out and said he's not happy with the CFIA.
Let's take that away from the specific instant case and just talk about that generally. It's been a consistent experience that farmers have had with federal agencies.
David Eby is objecting? David Eby is probably the most left-wing premier in the country. And he thinks this is interference by the federal government. He thinks this is unnecessary. Nobody was more supportive of mandates than David Eby. So when David Eby is in agreement with small c conservative, libertarian people, you know the federal government's up against the wall. I think this letter from Bobby Kennedy Jr. is going to make all the difference in the world. You know, and I thank God for Bobby Kennedy. Yeah, he hasn't been a perfect health minister in the States, and he's not perfect himself, but he's probably the best health and social service minister the U.S. has ever had. And this is a guy who actually is not in the pocket of Big Farm and will never be in the pocket of Big Pharma. Let's listen to some more of this because it's quite interesting.
Devastating for this family, for this farm, for these folks who are trying to build a life for themselves. And I hope the federal government looks very carefully at appropriate compensation to ensure they're made whole.
Other politicians as well, conservative and independents, have come forward. And as you can see, if you didn't already know, the public, the people are outraged. They've come in protests in camps, camping up on the property here to stand against the culling that unfortunately can take place at any minute and any time. Now, I made the 8-hour trek overnight. It was
can take place at any minute, at any time. This is, I have to be careful about how I phrase this, but this is terrorizing people. Let's put it that way. Okay, this is terrorizing these BC farmers. They can come anytime and just do it. And this is all about intimidation. This is government intimidation. This is what this is always about. It's about politics. It's about government intimidation.
a nice drive in the sense that no one was around, but I'm kind of tired right now. And I wanted to be able to be your boots on the ground here for you guys, because any moment we can see this threat to property rights, this threat to farming sovereignty, this threat to freedom in science be acted out senselessly. Like I said, despite so much pushback. And so I want to be here to make sure that the world sees it. And for that reason, we had to take some extra steps. I was already here for 4 days. There is literally no connection issue for me. I mean, I could text message people and things like that, but when it came to filming something, uploading it, sending it back to my colleagues so that they could edit it and get it up, it was a painful process, and it wasn't able to be done here. I was staying at a motel that's close by, but let's face it, when the Canadian Food Inspection Agency's hitmen show up, I could be over at the motel trying to upload footage. It just wasn't practical. And so to ensure that I could be here, I have to camp with these protesters.
Yes, yes, she does. And thank you, Dree, for your great work. And yeah, you're a fantastic reporter for Rebel News, and thank you, Rebel News, for using that clip, for my using that clip. But once again, I tell you, Bobby Kennedy is a tremendous health and human services secretary. He's doing a job that his predecessors wouldn't do, and I take my hat off to him. I've been a fan since he was running as an independent for president. I saluted him when he went over to Donald Trump's campaign, and I was very happy to see him get this position because he does want to make America healthy again. You know what? We could make Canada healthy again, but there's nobody in the Liberal government that's even interested in doing that. Let's move to Danielle Smith, who had interesting things to say, and I have to get my notes for this one. So Danielle Smith sends this X post out to Mark Carney. There has been lots of promising talk by the federal government this past week. Now, let's see some action. Axe the oil and gas cap and net zero power regs. Agree to work with Alberta on a corridor to Canada's northwest coast that includes an Alberta bitumen pipeline along with a tanker ban carve-out for that same oil. In other words, allow tankers on the coast. This was idiocy to ban oil tankers on the west coast. Albertans will be listening to hear these firm commitments in the throne speech, hoping it doesn't disappoint. Too much at stake for the future of this country. Yeah, there is. Before we get to our final segment here, Mark Carney is posing as not so much a conservative, but somebody who's just max flex. He's flexible. But don't believe for a minute he wants to help Alberta sell its oil, produce more oil and gas, or is really committed to a pipeline. This is all rhetoric coming from Mark Carney. He's very good at the rhetoric. That's one thing he's very good at. He's not very good at explaining his positions. And we're going to get to his mandate letter in a minute here. But Mark Carney is all about deflection and sleight of hand. So while he's got you looking over here, he's working over here doing something else, because we know Mark Carney wants to devalue the Canadian dollar and the US dollar. We've dealt with that issue in previous episodes. He's not talking much about that. You don't hear him talking much about taxing people when they sell their homes. He refused to take a position on that during the campaign. Pierre Poilievre took a position saying, not going to happen under a conservative government. But you can bet this Liberal government will look for taxes in anywhere they can find them. Any place they can tax Canadians, they will do that. And if that means being taxed when you sell your home on the equity in your home, they will do that. Because as I've often said, the government doesn't need to tax you to raise revenue. All they need to do is print money and put more money into the system. So that's what Justin Trudeau did. The debt kept spiraling. The annual deficits kept spiraling because taxation is not about getting the money they need. They just print the money and they don't give a damn about the inflation it creates or the fact that it makes life less affordable. It's about punishing you. That's why there are so many taxes in this country and throughout so many democracies today. Taxation is about punishment. It's about making sure you understand who's in charge here. And I thought the people were. I thought we were in charge. No, the government is in charge. The state is in charge in Canada. And they make sure you understand that at every available opportunity, and they use taxation for that purpose. Now let's listen to Mark Carney and some comments about his mandate letter.
The trading system, which has helped power Canada's prosperity for decades, is undergoing its biggest transformation since the fall of the Berlin Wall. At home, our long-standing weak productivity is making life less affordable for Canadian families. So Canada's new government has an immense responsibility to address these challenges head-on, with focus, new strategies, and determined execution. And that new approach animates the mandate letter that I shared with all members of our ministry at the end of our meeting. It reflects a unified mission.
I encourage you to read this mandate letter because there's zero substance. It's vague promises about actually cutting the civil service. You don't think so? No. Remember how they criticized Pierre Poilievre for even suggesting the civil service should be cut through attrition? Through retirement? Do you really think the Liberals are committed to anything except the perpetuation of their power? Mark Carney was brought in. He was parachuted in to the Liberal Party for one reason: to make people forget about Justin Trudeau and the 9 previous years of disaster. The catastrophe created by Justin Trudeau. We are on the precipice of a Great Depression, not just a recession. It's that bad. Our economy is in tatters. And here we got Mark Carney holding forth about Canada being an economic superpower, an energy superpower, the strongest economy in the world. It's all BS. Let's listen to some comments about this mandate letter.
That was Prime Minister Mark Carney yesterday after announcing he has given his entire cabinet one mandate letter. Now, it's one letter with 7 priorities for his government. Here they are in a nutshell. He wants his team to focus on establishing a new economic and security relationship with the United States while also strengthening collaboration with reliable trading partners and allies around the world. He's looking to remove interprovincial trade barriers and bring down costs for Canadians. Carney says his government will also be focused on making housing more affordable, protecting Canadian sovereignty, and returning to sustainable levels of immigration while also spending less on government operations.
What does it mean? These are just vague promises, as Carney once again wants to sound like he's really a small C conservative, or at least he's Mr. Flexibility. But there's no substance to this mandate letter at all. It is designed to make his government survive the first non-confidence vote, which is probably going to come pretty quick.
So it's a lot in there for just one letter, but what does this signal about Carney's priorities and how he intends to govern? Let's bring back the front bench. Christy Clark, Monty Solberg, and Nathan Cullen. Monty, I'll start with you on this one. So he's made it just one for all. Do you think that this covers everything, or are there some cracks there when you consider there's some ministries that may look at this and go, I don't really see how this applies to me?
No, I think just about everybody's involved. It's just a case of the economic ministers like LeBlanc and Champagne, Joly, Hodgson, et cetera, leading the charge, and other ministers playing a supporting role. David McGuinty will play more of a supporting role probably on national security, but even Minister Diab as immigration minister will be involved because she'll be expected to ensure that new immigrants to Canada are fully screened and that there's no concerns about security, for instance. So I think it's a good approach, quite frankly. It reminds me of what we did in 2006, where we had 5 priorities, and those ministers led on their issues, and the rest of us, to some degree, fell in behind and supported them and presented the public with something that we could demonstrate we had achieved and show that we had moved the ball forward for Canadians.
That's some of the worst commentary actually I've ever heard. I actually chose this one to show you the level of commentary that's on news programs right now. That's incredible. And by the way, I knew Monty Solberg very well when he was first of all, a Reform MP, Canadian Alliance MP, and then a federal minister with the Stephen Harper government, conservative government. I haven't seen him in years, but
Nathan, at the same time in 2015, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, when he was issuing mandate letters, made them public for the first time in a long time, but also had really customized them to every one of the ministers, and then actually had a tracker where you could go online and see whether or not they were meeting their goals. When you compare that approach to this one, which one do you think is better?
I generally like the accountability. I like at least what was an attempt at accountability for the ministers. We've all served in that type of portfolio where a clear direction from the center and in terms of what you need to get done and what you're going to be held accountable for is helpful. This is a broad list. It's 7 very broad and important things. So you can't quibble with what's on the list, although there will be some groups and some Canadians that are not going to see themselves on the list and say, well, wait, what are we doing about equality? I don't see a great deal of work here about reconciliation, for example. I was looking through it earlier, trying to find the words climate change in it.
The word climate change is not in this mandate letter. Who is Mark Carney trying to fool? This is a deliberate posture. Mark Carney is all about climate change. His whole career has been about climate change. So if he intentionally left climate change out of this mandate letter, it's to fool you, just like he did during the federal election campaign. I'm not suggesting the people who watch Stand on Guard were fooled, but there were a lot of foolish Canadians who believed Mark Carney was out there fighting for Canada against Donald Trump when that was all a mirage. It was all a facade. And this mandate letter is the same thing.
You know, there's going to be some folks that are going to be a bit worried, but you can also understand the approach given the threats coming, particularly from the U.S., and what those economic impacts are going to be, why so much of this is seen through the lens of dealing with Donald Trump, frankly, and the pressures that have been building on Canadians for a long time who have been trying and can't afford to buy a house, and the list is long. And that was the argument of the last election, both of those things, cost of living and Donald Trump. And I think these 7 priorities are.
I'll be back in a minute. I've got to show you my store ad because I don't do it enough. I'm always being told I'm proud of the material and merchandise we have in there. So bear with me. I'll be right back after this. Yes, please visit the store. There's some great stuff there for Father's Day, which is coming up. Can't believe we're in June. My birthday's in June. And it just seems like time just keeps going faster and faster the older you get. And of course, we've had some really bad news lately with passing members of the family passing. Just I thank God every day my health is good. I got through this, whatever it is. It was so bad the other day I thought I had pneumonia. I mean, I literally thought I had pneumonia. I was very difficult breathing. Anyway, I'm not telling you that so you feel sorry for me. I'm telling you that because that's another unexpected consequence of the pandemic, as we know. So, Parliament's back tomorrow. 6 months since Parliament's been sitting. What do you think the first thing they're going to do? Remember this, Mark Carney has still not repealed the consumer carbon tax. Nope, never repealed it, just lowered the price. Hasn't been repealed. Will he repeal the consumer carbon tax? What do you think Mark Carney is going to be all about? His throne speech read by King Charles III, and I don't know why King Charles III is coming to Canada to read this. I think this has more to do with Mark Carney's globalist connections because Charles is a globalist. He's in the pocket of the World Economic Forum, just like Mark Carney is. So I don't think this has much to do with Canada's constitutional history or Canada's history as a constitutional monarchy. I think this has everything to do with Mark Carney being subservient to the globalists, to Europe, and to making that statement. So I'm not enthused about this. I lost interest in Charles years ago because every time he opens his mouth now, he mutters woke politics, climate change dogma, and globalism. So beware of the throne speech. It's going to sound like, hey, this sounds like something Pierre Poilievre would have put together. This sounds like something almost conservative. Look at what Mark Carney talked about during the election campaign, and especially during the Liberal leadership campaign. He talked about, remember, the carbon tariff, the corporate carbon tax. That's what Mark Carney is all about. This is all going to be machinations to get his minority government past the first phase so he can stay in power. And he wants to look like he's a moderate. He wants to look like he's going to be able to cooperate, to consolidate, and to somehow be an arbitrator between the various means and ends of the country. But just like the battle with Donald Trump, it's all a facade. Thank you so much for watching today. I'm going to be back at 4 o'clock with my friend Spencer from Make Canada Great Again, and we're going to be talking about the issues of the week. I know you guys love that show now. It's becoming more popular every week. We're doing it again this Sunday because I couldn't do it Friday. Usually it's going to be on Fridays, but Spencer is a hell of a guy. He's out there doing real work, real journalism. I respect the work he's doing, and he's going to be on the show at 4 this afternoon, and we're going to be talking about a lot of different issues. Thanks for watching today. God bless this country. Godspeed. I'm David Krayden, and this has been a live broadcast from Ottawa.